the video starts, make sure you follow our socials in the description and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Welcome back to the Offbeat Podcast, people. Back again this week with another virtual episode, and I've got a very special guest here. I've got the current Bury FC assistant manager, Tim Lees, with me. How are we, Tim? You okay?
I'm good, Luke. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for joining me. And we do live a bit far apart, so we thought it might be a bit easier to do a bit of virtual recording, mainly because I wanted to get this in as soon as I possibly can. So just a bit of an episode really today, just to talk a little bit about your career and sort of your aspects at this moment in time. So you are currently the Bury FC assistant manager, aren't you? Under, is it Dave McNabb? Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Excellent. So you are flying at the moment, let's just say that. You're pushing towards that promotion. So is everything in that one pot towards promotion? Is that everything that you're working for currently?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as we came in, there's only one remit for the club, obviously with the club history, and they're absolutely nowhere near where they should be. So our only remit is to win the league and get up. Yeah, so we've got 9 games to go. In really good form at the moment. We're playing really well. So fingers crossed we can get up. Yeah,
of course, and you've got the fans all behind you. I'm quite involved in Bury Twitter at this moment in time. After a lot of them follow me, and the fans are 100% behind the team, which is always great to see. So, I mean, it's a bit of a blunt question, really, but you are the biggest ever team in the North West Counties League. It's official with the attendance records. Do you feel like that adds a certain sort of pressure towards yours and Dave's job, or are you just sort of treating it as any other non-league team?
I think from a managing and coaching point of view, the way the staff and the way we execute things is pretty much the same everywhere, to be honest, Luke. We just focus specifically on the process and the various processes around what we need to do to achieve the goal. I think in terms of the pressure, there certainly is pressure for the players, especially the way we want to play as well. There is a lot of pressure. The players, teams that come to us, everything around Bury, obviously the crowds is just, it's enormous for players. So they're not players that generally have played full time and brought up and gradually gone through the process of 18s, 23s, bigger crowds, come off the bench for first teams, played for different levels of first teams, etc. I think obviously the lads who are playing part-time in front of a full-time crowd, effectively some crowds are equal to some League Two teams. So it's a very unique non-league club, if you like. But yeah, there is pressure with it. But from a coaching and managing point of view, we just kind of focus on our processes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I remember when, because I had Benito Low on the previous episode. I'll leave a link to that in the description. And I think he described it in a perfect way of, you are the most professional, not like non-league club, essentially. You are essentially run like a professional club. You've got professional stadium, essentially. You've got all the players there that are wanting to push on to that step. And obviously you've got the coaching staff as well. So moving about sort of like the transition process. So, and I wanted to talk about sort of like how Bury works with you and Dave. So do you have sort of like set roles that you and Dave sort of work at? Do one of you take control more of like the training? One of you can deal more with like the sort of people management aspect? How does it sort of work between the two of you?
Yeah, so my side's purely coaching. So Dave's the manager, takes care of all managerial stuff around the club, around the team. Overseeing the different departments and communicate between the different departments. Mine's purely coaching, so collective development sessions, individual development. That's kind of how me and Macca work really at the different clubs we've been at.
Yeah, and then how does your training work? Do you train twice a week?
Yeah, so it depends, Luke, really on the week. We kind of work backwards from the game. So depends if we play Saturday, Tuesday. Obviously, I said before, the lads are part time. I know with Gig Lane and with the club, it effectively is a full time club with the fans and everything. But all our boys work, so they all work during the day. So the way we do it is work backwards from the game. If we just play one game a week on Saturdays, we'll train Monday nights and we'll train Thursdays, play Saturday. If we've got a game Tuesday, we'll obviously play Saturday. Sometimes we'll do like an analysis or a video session depending on what happened over the weekend on the Monday. And then we'll play Tuesday, train Thursday. Yeah, so we adapt really based on the week, but generally we get 2 sessions in evenings and the games.
And it's very, very intense, isn't it? Especially when you do get the Tuesday sort of Saturday games, because let's just say that non-league football, if people aren't familiar with sort of how non-league football, it is a little bit more of a physical approach to football, right? When you see sort of at like the top level, and it's people playing for fun at the end of the day, and people playing because they love the game, rather than you see some of the professional players nowadays who don't even like football but play because they are good at it. Whereas in the non-league system, there's some fantastic players and they are giving it their all. So how does it work with sort of the coaching then? Do you sort of take individual groups out with you, or do you just focus on the one team session with obviously the tactics preparing for the game? How does it usually work on a traditional sort of training session element?
Yeah, good question. So we effectively what we have, we have a group of players. We have them for 2 hours, and we'll base the session on the specific needs that we've had. So sometimes if we need some tactical work, we'll do the whole group together. We do a lot of individual and unit work, so we'll do a lot of defenders go together, midfielders, forwards on finishing. The way I kind of run it is big believer in the boys getting the reps specifically on what they need during the weekend. So for example, if you're a striker and you're going into a game on a Saturday and you haven't felt the back of the net 50 times in training, then we can't expect the boys to be efficient at that, whether they're full-time or part-time, even more so part-time, because it's just so much more important around the consistency, the reps, the confidence. So we do a lot of individual work. We do a lot of unit work. That can be different every single week. The way kind of the system that we're playing at the minute, the way we're doing things is we kind of break off into two sections at the moment because we're in very much the business end of the season. It's less about individual long-term development. So how can we really improve this individual? And it's more about how can we get the best out of this group to achieve results on the Saturday, because we've got 9 games to go and we have to win every single game. So it's about efficiency around the group collectively, but then breaking units within that to then achieve what we want.
Excellent. I like to touch on the efficiency, because non-league has to be efficient, because players come and go throughout the season. So for people who probably aren't too familiar with the English football non-league system, it's because everybody is sort of semi-professional. You usually don't have contracts, or a lot of people are on a pay-as-you-play sort of aspect. So do you find yourself having to be super flexible throughout the season and just sort of work with a group you have? And then are you and Dave always looking for extra players to come in? Or how does it work with sort of like bringing in new sort of like faces to the team?
Yeah, so obviously we have quite a big network in terms of we've seen a lot of players in non-league. Dave's massive on anytime staff get any time off, wants them go and watch another game. So because we're playing and training consistently, you can easily lose track of who the best players at that level are, the league above, etc. So our staff are really big on, and Dave's really big on us having a real good knowledge and player pool of non-league. You never know when someone's going to get injured, whether someone's going to come in and offer them a couple £100 more, so they've got to leave. So you've always got to have that player pool. We are quite unique at Bury as well. We have a head of recruitment, which is one of the only teams in non-league that have that. Yeah, so we brought a head of recruitment in this year who has got a lot of contacts, constantly watching players. So yeah, I think particularly hopefully if we win the league next year and go up, you're always after those different makers in a couple of positions. But again, we're big believers, Luke, really on keeping the core group together. So we've got a lot of lads in our team that we've worked with at a couple of other clubs now, and we've had for 3 or 4 years. And I think it's one thing seeing a player play, but you've got to know the mentality as well. Can they play injury free? Can they do it consistently? What's the mentality around consistently training? Are they open minded to the ideas that we want to bring in and the way we want to play? So there's a lot more around it than just obviously seeing a player play. We've seen outstanding lads in non-league. Then when they come into what we do, not saying it's slightly different, but we've got a particular way of doing things. So there's a lot that goes into it, to be honest. Yeah. Believe it or not, we'll do a lot of digging on the backgrounds of players, mentality. We'll speak to a lot of people. Culture is massive for us. So yeah, there's an awful lot that goes into it around the recruitment. Yeah.
Excellent. So, I mean, you've seen it more and more in the professional game as well now at the moment in time. Like, there's so many sort of big clubs out there. So I'm a City fan, as you can tell by my background. So we have the most intense recruitment aspect in the world at this moment in time. Like, they will know every single bit about every single player, and they'll speak to past managers and such, and it works. And you need that at non-league as well, because if you're all vying for one goal, I mean, all it takes is you could go in a spell of 6-7 wins, and you're pushing playoffs. It's such a compact division, especially in the division you're in at this moment in time. Like, my local team is Gossip North End. That's where I live at the moment. They've gone from sort of second bottom in the league, and now they're sort of pushing in towards a mid-table push now. And that's just with sort of like a change in direction, a change in managing. So do you and Dave you don't adapt your approach really to the club? Because obviously you've been at Warrington, haven't you? You've been at Mac. So have you just take it, or do you sort of adapt specific elements to specific clubs, or do you just straight, this is how we work and this is how we want the club to be run?
So we've got a way that we want to play. We've got a specific way that we want to play, but we'll adapt some principles. We've got some negotiables, some non-negotiables, some that are variable around, some where we'll go, we're not moving on. The way we want to dominate the ball, the way we want to play in the opponent's half, how we want to counter press, how aggressive we are. I think they're things that never change. The way we might change it is with different profiles that we get in. So we'll adapt the system slightly based on whatever players we've got. We will adapt, certainly, particularly in this league, around other elements around pitches and things like that. So dropping down to this league, it's the first time I've been involved in this league. Big drop in terms of, especially when you go away. So our away record at first wasn't as good as our home one. So yeah, it's slightly different, but we have a set way that we believe that we can achieve success, and we don't change that anywhere. Going back to your point on kind of opposition and stuff, we actually have an opposition scout that goes and watches one or two games ahead of every game that we play. But we really focus on, I'd say probably 80% of what we do is based on us. So if we execute what we believe in, if we do the things and we kind of really force our game model on other teams, there's very little we think they can do about that. If we don't, and the further we come away from that, that's when we start having problems. So most conversations we have with the boys is how do we impose our style on the opponent, but we have a breakdown from the scout who goes watching on every player. So the WhatsApp group Macca will put together the day before every Friday. I'll send out to all the players in the WhatsApp group, and it'll have formations for the last 5 games that the teams that we're playing against have played. It'll have all the results. It'll have a breakdown of each individual player. And what we say is that that's available for you. So if you want to read it, you can read it. You can go in as much detail as you want. You can speak to us. You can speak to the scout about it. But as Macca always says, kind of make sure you know the information. So if you're getting caught out on something that we've highlighted in it and you haven't read it, that's when you're going to have problems. So that's the way we do it, yeah. But most of it is focused on ourselves.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. Do you find it, because obviously with the league you're in at this moment in time, you've got one team in there that is very different to the rest, and that is the Isle of Man. Does that make it a little bit harder to sort of scope with them, obviously being on an island?
No, because our scout will look at them when they come over here. So
oh, right, okay, so he's looking over
games, here. He'll build in. So he'll work 3 or 4 weeks ahead of whatever game we've got, and he'll look at whatever games are around local, yeah. But that is a very unique club, to say the least, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a little bit of trouble with, obviously, the travel arrangements and stuff, but you managed to get over. And I watched the game on the Sunday morning. It was better for me because there was nothing else on, so I thought I might as well watch it for free. Yeah, it was proper non-league game, which I always love with a penalty as well. You've got to love a bit of non-league. Whenever I do try and get out there, I make sure I try and get out there as much as possible. I wanted to touch on a bit of your non-league career as well, especially highlighting one club, because you had very immediate and great success with Warrington Rylands, didn't you, with you and Dave? And you managed to reach the FA Vars final, didn't you, at Wembley? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so while we're at the club, we had back-to-back promotions from the league we're in now and the league above, and we won the Vars, yeah, which was an amazing experience.
So how does that... So obviously, like, it's every professional footballer's dream to get to Wembley. And as a semi-professional team to manage to get there and win a competition, what was that day like for the management team, really, at Wembley?
It was really unique, to be honest, Luke, because it was during COVID, so it was really strange. So it was just as COVID was starting. It's a long conversation. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. If you think about it, for non-league teams, for the FA Vars, for example, I think there's 650, 700 teams that go into it. So even when you're in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, you think, well, we're probably not going to get there. You know what I mean? In a cup competition, anything can happen. So you can get a red card, bad refereeing decision, you can get an injury to a player, just luck on the day. But in terms of getting there, it was just an incredible experience for the boys as well. I mean, for non-league players, for part-time players to experience that, be at Wembley, it's something they'll never forget. Yeah.
And it's a great showcase as well. Didn't was it your striker made it pro after that game? Is that right? Or not
Yeah,
long
he's
after?
full time. Yeah, still playing full time. Yeah, had a really good career since then. Yeah, still scoring. So yeah, he
I mean,
did.
yeah, you've had
We've had
some
a
good
couple more
players
have gone
playing
on as
under you.
well.
Yeah, you've had some
Yeah, it was a
great
very
players
good
under you.
team. Very good team. Yeah.
Especially with like Warrington, 'cause obviously, is it Rooney's owners? Rooney's agent owned the club. Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's right. Yeah, Paul Stretford. So Paul owned the club. Really back the club. Wouldn't have been possible without him. Major influence on it, and yeah, we had a really good 2 seasons there. Yeah, and the Vase is pretty much the pinnacle of it's the pinnacle cup competition you can win at that level. So
Yeah, it's the pinnacle of most sort of players' careers as well. You're looking at that, and you're never going to take that Wembley trophy away from you, which is amazing to see. I wanted to touch on more of your career because obviously you've done a lot of sort of full-time coaching, part-time coaching, and sort of moved around from there. So one point I really wanted to highlight was your time in USA. So you were actually, was it were you the academy director over St Louis? Is that right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I was working at Liverpool at the time, and 4 or 5 when you're at Wigan and Liverpool, a lot of clubs will come over on study visits and they'll want to watch the academy and want to speak to you about philosophy and sessions and just learn really. So some guys, a group of directors came over from St Louis, just walking them through the way we do things, and then they were really keen to effectively they said they wanted to make St Louis the best academy in the whole of North America, most successful one, produce the most players. So yeah, they offered me academy director job, so I moved over there. Yeah, was one of the best clubs I've been at. One of the best times I've had in terms of coaching. Yeah.
Nice. So did you oversee the whole academy from all ages, or is it just sort of like moving into the professional game, or?
So I managed the under 23s and I oversaw the philosophy from sevens to 23s. Yeah. So we'd have full time staff in terms of kind of different age groups, so like 12 to 16s, 9s to 12s, and then we'd have part time staff at every age group from there. So I oversaw implementing the style, individual and collective style for the whole academy. Yeah, which was yeah, amazing experience, big challenge. Obviously in hundreds of staff, but yeah, really enjoyed it.
Hundreds of staffs and probably thousands of kids as well under your belt, which always definitely does help you. So it was all about sort of philosophy. So what sort of drove you to move over there? Was it the sort of the director role? Was that the reason why you went over to America? Was it just a point of, do you know what? I'm at my stage of my career. I want to see what I can do abroad as well. Was that sort of what enticed you over there?
So I went and played over there. I did a scholarship for a year over there. When I got released by Everton, I went over there, and I enjoyed it, really enjoyed it. And I always had one eye on getting back over for coaching, but it'd have to be the right opportunity and the right club with the right ambition and things. I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest, Luke. And then when they approached me to go over, I just really I buy into people a lot, and I really bought into the people. Kevin Kalish and a few of the guys there, they were outstanding leaders in what they did. And I was just really motivated by the project. At the age I was at, which was kind of late 20s, no commitments in terms of family and things. So I thought, do you know what? Not that I'd reached the ceiling, but I'd worked for 10 years in the professional game in England, doing every role from under nines all the way through to under 18s. And I just felt as if this was the right move to go over in a new place, in a new country, a new culture, new weather. Um, so yeah, it was honestly it was an incredible experience. Brilliant people, amazing talent in terms of the players. Yeah, can't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. It's why I've started this podcast as well. Like, I'm a people person. I love to meet people, hear their stories, see how they outlook, and I buy into people as well. As that's why I try and do as much research on my guests as I possibly can to make sure that A, I'm going to get along with them, and B, they're going to have a story for me to hear. And obviously, with you, you've got plenty of stories out there. So, sort of moving from that sort of full time sort of coaching career you had. So you were at Liverpool and Wigan, weren't you? And were you under, was it Roberto Martinez at Wigan? Is that right? Was he the manager at the time?
Yeah, that's right. So I started off at Watford, moved to
Mhm.
moved to Wigan then for 4 years, went to Liverpool and then St Louis. Yeah.
So who do you feel like was your biggest sort of influence on your career then, sort of as a coach? Because obviously you've dealt with countless coaches over your time. Who was that one key influence for you, do you think?
So Interesting, really. There's been a lot of people along the way that at the stage of I was at in my coaching career, I I was constantly educated and learned from. So if I look back to Watford, I worked under a guy called Nick Cox, who's the academy manager at Man United now. Learned an incredible amount from him at the time. Um, then went to Wigan, Martinez for 4 years. Liverpool worked with Mick Beale, Pep Linders, Alex Inglethorpe. We were under Brendan Rodgers there. Um, in terms of if the number one, Martinez was the biggest influence on me. So Roberto was the one who um, I felt as if at the time, and it sounds quite arrogant, this, but it was the point I was at in my career. I felt as if I was a good coach at the time. So I've worked at a couple of clubs. I've worked for Wigan and Watford, done a lot of hours, and I thought I'm quite comfortable here. And it was under Martinez that I learned I was absolutely a million miles away. Just completely reinvented the way I coach, completely changed my philosophy in terms of how we produce individuals and collective teams. Yeah, I think that was the one that opened my eyes the most in terms of how far away I was as a coach. So learned an incredible amount from him, and I would say you've probably the biggest influence. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about philosophies, and Martinez definitely had a very keen attacking philosophy. I mean, everyone remembers his time at Wigan. He took a team who's now a League One club, but back then they had exciting. Like, people talk about streets will remember sort of players, and I'd probably say 50% of them are from Wigan back in the day. Like, looking at Amir Zaki, like, names come to your head straight away. And he definitely had a great career. And obviously he's got into international management and seeing success as well, which is also great. Is that something that would ever interest you, sort of moving from the club aspects? I know you were saying that you love coaching, you love working with players day in, day out. Would you ever consider like international management where you probably don't see the players as recent and as sort of like often as you would like?
So for me, Luke, the reward I get now is through relationships with players and whatever players I'm working with, helping them achieve the maximum potential. So helping them see doors and opening doors for them that they couldn't see themselves. That's my big thing. I'm I don't really care now about the level that I work at. It's more the relationships of the lads that I'm working with and what impact can I have on them. For me, that comes in seeing them regularly. So I'm big on the more contact time, the better with players. So look at the different systems I've been in. Like Watford was day release program, so we'd be coaching from 8 in the morning because all the kids were based at the school. Um, if I look at Wigan, we didn't have a day release program, so that was evenings. So you work all evenings. Liverpool was day release program. In America, that was day release program. So my background really is very much you maximise the contact time that you've got with the players, and I've applied that to non-league as well. So maximising every single minute that you can get with them. So for me, more regular contact is what kind of ticks the boxes for me.
So would you say your like drive at this moment in time in the non-league game, is it to get them players into professional football? Is that what sort of really drives you to push their careers up?
I think it's interesting that. So in the clubs that we've been at, believe it or not, it's actually gone the other way. So we've had a lot of boys that have come out of full time. So they've had an option of playing League Two football, for example, or Conference North football full time. And from a financial point of view and a second career point of view, if you've played that level, at some point you have to have a second career financially.
Yeah.
So a lot of lads will actually step out of those levels and go part time because financially they can do really well at certain clubs that they're at, and they can work on that second career, so they can have jobs during the day, and then they can still combine the passion and improving and getting better and playing in front of good crowds and good clubs, etc. And the drop in level isn't particularly that much. I think we have every club we're at, we have young lads who come through and they still want to go full time. So at Bury now we've got 4 or 5 that would still want to push for full time. But I personally, I get just as much out of working with older players who you would say at the back end of the career and helping them just improve or be better or whatever area it may be. So yeah, we do have a lot of lads who do want to go back full time, but for some of them it isn't the motivator. Yeah.
I find that interesting as well. I know you mentioned it. I've just thought of so I interviewed Harry Bunn, Harry's currently at Hyde. And he had exactly the same thought. He was like, I could have gone back to Scotland, had a full-time contract there, but I wanted to come home. I wanted to just love my football again. And that's what he looked for in the club. And I find that so interesting about non-league because you just see random players popping up out of everywhere and you're like, how have you got there? And then you're seeing that they've still got the talent and application. Do you feel like the standard of non-league has increased over, say, the last 10 years that you've worked in there? Because obviously you've seen so many pro footballers now playing in non-league. Do you feel like that's sort of attributed to a higher like playing standard?
It's you can't compare it to 10 years ago, Luke. So back when I was playing 10, 12 years ago in non-league, the same level now, it doesn't compare because you've got more lads now. There's a lot more money in non-league than when I was playing. So if I look at like my highest contracted, when I was at a club and I was the highest contracted earner, it's like 5, 6 times more now at the same level. So with that, lads drop out of full time more, and like I said, they want to focus on whatever it is that career is going to be, the business or working during the day, and then balancing the football out as well. So with that, I think just honestly, the influence of Guardiola, the influence of higher coaching qualifications. You have a lot more coaches now in non-league that you didn't 10 years ago that have worked full time with good experiences. Everything's been professionalised more. So the level is there's some outstanding players in non-league that could easily play different levels of full time. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the team. I mean, but at this moment in time, like you've got people like Pascal Chimbonda who's just gone to Skem, hasn't he? And then he just puts his boots on and makes himself a player, and he just gets on and plays 90 minutes, and you're like, this is mental. And you see it happening over and over again. I mean, some of the players that you've got under your belt, you've got like Benito Lowe up top, you've got like Andy Scarsbury, who's sensational. Like you've got some sensational players there pushing forward as well. In regards to sort of like the non-league pyramid there for you, because it is something that just fascinates me, especially when we're talking about sort of like professionalism. So in your league at this moment in time, like everybody is so close together and such as well. So if you do get promotion, I'm not saying you will do, obviously you're in a good position, but with the leagues, you've got teams behind you, you've got 3 games in hand on you, and you've got 2 games in hand over team that's above you, and it's so fluid. How big of a jump up do you think it is from going from step 6 to step 5? Do you think it's that big of a jump in quality, or is it fairly similar?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, there's a jump up in quality of pitches. So in terms of the style that we want to play, it helps massively. So it's easier for us, and the type of player that we've recruited as well in terms of the understanding, the technique. That's really difficult on worse pitches. So the pitches that we're playing on currently, including our home pitch, which is really poor at the moment, all it does is it makes it a leveler for opposition teams. So we want to move the ball really quickly through the pitch, across the pitch. We want to switch play. We want to get 1v1s wide areas. We want to play 1 and 2 touch combinations through the middle. All these things that we do, it becomes a proper leveler on the pitch. So you can't quite accelerate to get away when we work it wide and we find those 1v1s with our wing backs. The quick combinations get slowed down with the pitch, or it's a bobble, so you can't play quickly. So I think in terms of the way we do things and want to play, we'll find it a lot easier in the league above. In terms of the players as well, it's really interesting. So this would be a much longer conversation, but in this league, with all due respect, players don't think about the game as much. So, for example, when you're building play, they'll just fly out after you. Whereas in the league above, they'll go, right, I can't press that one because I'll get played around. So they'll sit off you more. So the game's a bit slower. You get more time on the ball. This league is just 100 miles an hour, transitional. You have a go, we have a go. We try to come away from that a lot. But every team is very much, it can become just a game of tennis. So, and that's not the way we want to play. We don't want to play like that at all. We want to have complete control over games, and control the spaces, and control the opposition, and don't let them out. You'll know all about that through City. So, I think we will definitely be able to play and impose our style of play better next year in terms of the league and the players. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you look at some of the grounds in the league above you, and they're immaculate. There's a lot of 4G pitches flying around now, and that really does breed it. I remember I interviewed Cam Mason, who's currently with Curzon Ashton at this moment in time, and he was saying, as a goalkeeper, like he loves playing it because he's a goalkeeper who loves to play football. And Curzon Ashton's pitch at the moment in time, and their facilities are, if not the best in National League North, they're definitely top 5. They're sensational. And the leveler that they've got is when they go away, they just have to adapt their game. But when they're at home, they know they're going to pick up 10 wins minimum, if not 15 wins, because they know they're going to be able to play their sort of their style of play more easily.
Yeah.
Do you think that also helps with sort of like certain non-league clubs getting further in the FA Cup sort of runs? Because obviously when you are playing that higher level of opposition, you are able to play on a better pitch, better facilities, and impose yourself a lot more. So do you feel like that's why we're seeing a lot more non-league clubs making it to the first round proper or the later stages of the qualifying rounds?
No, absolutely, yeah. And I think it's the pitches is a big thing, 100%. It just really slows the game down and favours teams if they want to play high intensity and they don't want to dominate the ball and they want to play in transition. It favours them a lot more. And I think the thing about the league that we're in as well is that there's 46 games, so that is an unbelievable amount of games. Now, for lads again who are not full-time athletes, to peak at your performance for 46 games during the season, you just feel like you are constantly on recovery all the time. So say we play Tuesday, Thursday really is recovery. So it's a light session. Say we play Saturday, Monday, it's recovery day. 48 hours is peaking in terms of the soreness and the fatigue. So you constantly feel as if you're trying to just get the lads peak performance. That's mentally as well. Going back to your question about the FA Cup. So for example, at Bury, if every team that we play will come, and honestly, Luke, you've seen some games that I'll go and watch it. We'll go and watch a player or a team a week before or a week after, or someone who's played really well against us, and we'll go, he's outstanding. Let's go and watch him. They're not the same player the next week. So all the level of percentage, the motivation, it jumps 15% every team that play us. They're at the peak because it's Bury. It's the one fixture in the calendar that will look at and go, Gig Lane, Bury, big crowd. And every team's at the best in terms of intensity, effort. And what happens is, if our lads are not quite 100% for whatever reason, that jump up in 15% for them, that drop in 15% for us, that then becomes a leveler. So I think peaking for performance and pitches and intensity, all this it plays a massive part. It's not just about obviously the best players. The mentality is the biggest thing for me. Can you consistently, especially at a club like Bury, can you consistently do it week in, week out?
It's so hard as well. Like there's so many factors. Like for example, like one of your players might be a labourer. They might have had a heavy day on the Friday and then they've got to wake up and play football for 90 minutes. And the body might just not be able to take it as well as certain other players. So there's so many different factors that fly into non-league. And that's why I love it so much, because you can't just look at a player and be like, oh, he's played professional football. He's got to be the best player in the league, because he might have different factors to another player who's currently not as technically skillful, but he's got that mentality where everything revolves around football, so he'd be able to sort of excel there. And I love
on that point, Luke, yeah, you spoke about Andy Scarra's bit before. I mean, take Scarra as an example. So his job is he'll be in a field, so he'll go straight from training some nights. He'll finish training with us at 10 o'clock. He might drive to middle of Scotland, be in a field all night till 4 in the morning. So what's his recovery like? What's his hydration like? He's then up for work the next morning again. So sleep isn't consistent. Then we're back at training on the Tuesday. Or the Monday, sorry. So then we're back training. So in terms of the stuff away from it when you're part-time, I mean, you look at Skaz. So Skaz is someone who'll run 13.8k 2 games ago in that Isle of Man game.
Jesus.
It's unheard of. Like, that's Premier League level.
Yeah.
And if you look at like the lifestyle outside of it, I suppose that's probably the thing with a lot of fans as well, particularly if you look at Bury fans, they're probably used to full-time athletes all the time. Yeah. But I think the admiration I've certainly got for lads in terms of the dedication away from it part-time is it really is, honestly, it really is special. Especially anyone can come in and do it for a month and start of a season when the pitches are nice and the weather's nice. The players who can do it consistently all season, the mentality is off the charts.
Oh, of course, especially when you're looking at like playing on Boxing Day, for example. Like you've got a bogged down pitch, probably slightly frozen. You've got your family on your back of your mind that you want to go and do this, and you have to come out and play 90 minutes of football. And it really does set apart sort of like the teams in your sort of league there moving forward, definitely. I also wanted to end a little bit on sort of like a little bit of your playing career as well, because you had an unbelievable opportunity a few years ago when you were playing for Pepsi, weren't you? And you did a bit of coaching for Pepsi as well. Like, can you just tell us a little bit about the story behind that? Because it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so there was an advert on TV. I'd just been released by, it was Bolton at the time. kind of didn't really know what I was going to do. Started playing non-league locally around Everton Coles and a few other teams. And two of my friends sent me this advert that was on Channel 4. So it's a funny story. So this advert comes out and they're basically looking for the best 2 amateur players in the country to go on this. They're very vague about it, but basically this competition worldwide. So I thought, I'll just go for it. Why not? So there were different heats, different events that you had to go through. One in Manchester, I think another one in the north, then went down to London, and basically all these different things. So on it was a range of stuff. So you'd be tested on S&C, explosive jump, speed, agility. That would be one stage. The next stage would be technique. So you'd have different receiving scenarios, twisting and turning 1v1, finish it. They did the whole spectrum. So the coaches were Robin van der Laan, Dean Gorey. They were coaches that had played Premier League. And then effectively, they whittled it down to the final 4. The final 4 did interviews, so they wanted to see you on media and things like that. And then they chose the final 2. Ended up getting through to the final 2, me and a lad called Marcel Jones in London. But it's really interesting, Luke. So at the time, they said, you're going to go around the world and you're going to do these different challenges. It's going to be filmed on Channel 4. It was one of the first reality shows at the time. So this was in 2006. So it was a long time ago. And they said, right, we can't tell you where you're going. We can't tell you the location. We can't tell you the players that you're doing it with. So just after Christmas, we flew out. It was for 6 weeks. So we arrived in Barcelona, and effectively what happened was there was 12 different countries, the best 2 amateur players from 12 different countries, not assigned to a professional club. And there was a series of challenges in each country. So 6 different countries, 6 different challenges. You'd have 2 or 3 days or a week or so in each country and each place. But the challenge would be decided by a pro player. So at the time, Barcelona was Ronaldinho. He'd choose a challenge there, and we'd do filming with Ronaldinho. Brazil would be Roberto Carlos at the time, so we'd do a challenge based on beach football, 2v2. You then go to Madrid, which was David Beckham. It'd be a challenge based on technique and striking. We went to Milan, and there was a challenge by Alessandro Nesta. I'm trying to think back now. This really tested me. We went to Egypt, which was Thierry Henry designing a challenge there. So it was basically the best players that were tied to Pepsi at the time. And you'd have this challenge in every country. Then you'd accrue points. So this TV crew would follow you around. Each country would have a TV crew that follow them around every day doing interviews, and you'd go around the city and do different things. And it was very, very full on. So effectively, everyone lived together for 6 weeks. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, the top 2 countries went through to a penalty shootout at half time of an AC Milan game at the San Siro for, I think it was 100 grand. We didn't make it through, unfortunately. So, but it was the best experience of my life. Things away from it, Luke, away from the football was incredible. The people I met was incredible. The opportunities that was good, but it was things around it like media training and how to approach interviews and just everything around it was just an amazing life experience that, well, to say it was unique is an understatement.
Understatement, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
So, I mean, incredible, mate, absolutely incredible.
It's you played with some of the best footballers to ever do it, and you've done challenges set by them, which I find just fascinating for you. And being on Channel 4 as well, did that find to sort of open up opportunities for you coming out? Because obviously you've now had a career in football for God knows how many years since then. Well, ever since, it's coming up to nearly 20 years now. So do you think that really sort of helped catapult your career, obviously as a young lad pushing into a career in football?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the contacts that I made on there opened a lot of doors. The people in terms of the people. So I'd be on a plane, for example, and I was 19. So you'd be going to different countries, and I'm an absolute mitherer to people. So I'd sit with Robin van der Laan, for example, and I'd go, walk me through what it was like to play centre mid in Premier League, walk me through different situations. And I just, honestly, I'm a constant miser for people, especially at that point in my coaching career, because I knew nothing. I wanted to know everything. I knew I wanted to coach. So yeah, it's just an unbelievable experience, whole round holistic experience for me. And yeah, it opened so many doors. That opened the door certainly for me to start working at Watford, and that's where it all kind of started, the coaching. So
it kickstarted, yeah.
Yeah, after that, I had some. So they actually employed me after that. I don't know why they did, because I was a rubbish coach. I was too young, but they must have seen something in me. So that Pepsi employed me after that as a coach. So they would say you'd open a Pepsi can and there'd be competitions on the back, and you could win a day with David Beckham in Madrid or Carlos Puyol in Barcelona. So I wasn't a lead coach in it, but I'd go and I was what's called a technical coach in it. So when they do the sessions with all the competition winners, I'd fly out with them and I'd work the techniques and coach them and things. So yeah, amazing experience.
I never thought they were real, you know. Do you know, like growing up and you see all these competitions and stuff, and I'd always just be like, oh, they're not real, they're not real. But we have now got living proof that they are real and people do go out there. So, like, working with them, like, that is something that is absolutely unheard of as well. And obviously, and also, you've got a qualification. Is it sports psychology you got a degree in?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how's that sort of helped you to adapt? Because obviously you're dealing with countless players, countless people on a day-to-day. Do you think that really sort of drives your initiative to want to get to know the players, want to learn with the players? Has that sort of helped you in your managerial and coaching career as well, having that degree?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick story on that actually. So when I was 19, and at the time I was doing one of my friends was world freestyle champion, and he was getting loads of opportunities. Yeah, so he was doing like loads of like body doubling and stuff, and he was earning a lot of money doing it. So I wanted to start doing it because I thought I was seeing what he was doing. You're influenced by people around you and things, and I thought that I'd love to get into that. So I started getting into that on the side. Um, so I actually finished second in the World Night Freestyle Championship in 2004. So going into that 2006, one of the events, or one of the kind of, just for the camera, was doing some skills with Ronaldinho. So we went into every country, go into the middle. You got 1 minute with him. There's about 3,000 people on this balcony, cameras whirling around you, and you had to do these skills. Anyway, I've got into the middle and completely failed. Like, I've dropped the ball, I can't keep the ball up, and I'm like, what is going on here? Yeah, honestly, it was like, at the time I was devastated, but now, like, looking back at it, so after that I was like, what actually happened? How did that happen? Because I can execute these moves and I can do this when no one's watching. So that made me then go. I spoke to a sports psychologist, and that made me go into the sports psychology degree. So I wanted to help athletes then who would struggle in moments or struggle in games, etc. So yeah, did the degree in London for 3 years, and then worked. That was when I worked at Watford as well. So I was kind of combining working at the academy at Watford and studying at university as well.
Jesus, it's definitely full time there, isn't it? That's a lot of work, and you're seeing it more and more. Like UCFB, for example, they now just do solely sort of like sport degrees now, don't they? And sort of pushing that into the game. Like, what would be? Have you got any advice for sort of like people looking into the coaching roles out there? So people who probably didn't make it as preferable. What's like your key advice that you've got for the coaches that are coming through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some amazing experience to be had in terms of coaching. I think for me, I get that question a lot from a lot of coaches, and the key thing is just gathering experience. So um, honestly, I started off working with 4 or 5 kids on my local under 16s club. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, just working on a Saturday morning. So I'd do an hour with them on a Saturday morning. Started doing after school clubs, working in holiday clubs, holiday camps. Worked on kids that have been expelled from school, and working with what's called NEET, so working with those. So I think having the whole range of experience. A lot of coaches that I speak to are in a rush to get to the top level. So if they're an academy coach, they want to get the next stage group. If they're 12 to 16s, they want to get under 18s. They're under 18s, they want to get to the first team. And it feels, with not everybody, but a lot of coaches, like it's a rush to the first team. But the last thing you want to do is get there and not have the answers and not be able to help, and haven't done the time and haven't got the experience. So I think every experience you have with a player, the skill set's completely transferable. So what I do now with the first team, for example, at Bury, or when I was in the States and working with the first team with loads of international players, effectively is the exact same as what I do with under nines at Wigan, under nines at Watford. The principles are the same in terms of the communication, the organisation, the preparation, your messages, how to get the best out of players. So I think, yeah, just gathering experiences and valuing those experiences and building those relationships with players. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are, how tactically great you are. If you haven't got that connection, you can't communicate with players. If you're a player in my team and you don't believe in the message I'm giving, if I'm not interested in you as a person genuinely, that's going to come across, and you're not going to buy into me as a coach. So for me, it's all about life experiences, relationships, communication, understanding people. That I'm really big on that side.
Yeah, don't even that isn't just for sport. That it works in all works of life. Any form of management, you need to care. Like in my work, like I have a one-to-one manager every single month. He'll spend the first 20 minutes just talking about what's going on in like our lives,
Yeah.
and then he'll remember certain bits from like he'll come and he'll ask me about a podcast, he'll ask me about this, he'll ask about this, and it's showing that people care about you, which is exactly what you want. I wanted to end on a few sort of quick fire questions and a little bit sort of like clickbaity questions, but. I like name dropping. I won't lie to you. So it's what I like. Who's probably the one? I'll do it. I'll do it fair because obviously you're currently at Bury. I want you to name one Bury player. But who is the best player that you have coached, as in like talent ability? So one for Bury at this moment in time, and then one for sort of like your wider career.
In terms of ability, I would say Curtis Jones at Liverpool was unbelievable talent. Obviously, he's fulfilling that now, but I would say he's the number one in terms of technical mentality, street mentality, desperate to be the best. He's number one, 100%.
What age did you have him from?
I had him at 14s and 15s. Yeah.
So he's properly coming into his game then. So he's really sort of taking it seriously. But so he's awesome.
Outstanding talent. I think it goes back to what we said earlier about mentality. Just that's a kid at 14, 15 who, if he lost the game, would be fighting with people straight away. Rightly or wrongly, couldn't stand losing, couldn't lose an activity. If he lost an exercise with someone, he'd have to go and do it again. But no, come back. Like just that inbuilt mentality, that inbuilt winning mentality. For me, that's what, and this is a completely separate conversation, but that's what really drives players. I've seen loads of players at under 9, 10, 11, 13 who, if I look back across the journey now, they're playing Premier League and they weren't the best player in their age group at the time, but they had the best mentality. They had that constant repetition, the desire to go away and improve, the desperation to be the best. And I think for me, that mentality, I'm not saying you can't give it players. I think you can. But if it's inbuilt in you, that competitiveness and that resilience, for me, they're the players who get through the system and who have the best chance of, who've certainly gone on anyway. Yeah.
And then, so Bury-wise, who do you think, because you've got so many talented players at Bury at this moment in time, like it's like a non-league all-stars at certain points. Who do you think's like that one most like best sort of technically gifted player you've got at this moment in time?
We've got a lot. I mean, in terms of the way we do things, the way we recruit is we have different personalities and different identities. So we make sure that the different identities function. So, for example, the way we build our midfielders is we want a spider in the web, so like someone who connects all the units, like a Rodri. We'd want a runner to complement it, someone who's box to box, covers the ground, and then we want like a creator. So we wouldn't have three creators, three spider in the webs. We recruit very specifically for the system. In our wing backs, we want really athletic profiles who can go 1v1. The middle centre half, for example, in the back three, we want them really dominant and powerful, whereas the wider ones, we want more converted full backs who are more mobile. So I think we recruit for a style of play and system and a way of playing rather than the best individuals.
Do you know what I find fascinating about that? Sorry to interrupt you, Tim. I'm a big football manager player. I love football manager. And that is how I build my midfield on a game. And I'm like, maybe I could be a pro man. I'm just going to ring round the non-league clubs and get a bit of coaching on there because I'm involved here. I'm involved.
You found your next career, really. You're in there.
Yeah, definitely. Give me the confidence to get there.
I think the thing with non-league, right? The thing with non-league is there's some amazing talent. And if you watched our sessions, technically the players, what they're capable of is equal to players in the leagues. What they don't do is they can't do it as consistently. So, whereas an outstanding player in Championship might go 1v1, destroy a fullback 9 times out of 10, our lads might do it 4 times out of 10. Whereas if our centre mid tries to switch play, they might do it 6 times out of 10. So I think the biggest thing with the high levels you go is the athleticism and the physicality, but the consistency, being able to do it. I think in terms of, if you're asking technically, I think for us, Billy Reeves is technically outstanding. So he's kind of our Rodri, he's our spider in the web. He's the one who connects the whole play and controls and dictates the rhythm and the tempo. And I think if you're asking specifically technically, I would say Billy's probably technically our best player.
Perfect. And you can clip that up and I'll send it to Benito Will, who's be like, why have you not sent me, coach? Why have we not?
Honestly, as soon as this goes out now, all the players are not going to be happy with it. Do you know what? They'd probably all say the same, to be fair.
Yeah, they all. You all know when you've got a player like a Rodri who just connects everything together. Like then sometimes they go, it's the most underappreciated players are the ones that get you that promotion, that get you that title, that get you to the next step. And when you've got someone like I love a six. A six is my favourite position in football. Like it's what sometimes I'm sat there in a stand and I'll just watch Rodri for 40 minutes because I'm like, he's just the best player on the pitch and there's no getting away from it. Like, and when you watch what he does.
On that one, sorry to cut you up, Luke, on that one, Martinez used to say it all the time, show me your deep liar and I'll tell you how your team plays. And I think if you look at Rodri, that's a brilliant example of it, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, when you look at it, like if you think about like teams in yesteryears, like I know it's a random name that's coming to my head, but like Charlie Adam at Blackpool, he was the pinnacle of that team. And if he didn't play, they look like a completely different side. You look at United at the moment with Casemiro. When Casemiro doesn't play, they look a completely different side. It's, in my opinion, it's the most important position of a football field, and it's what I look for as a fan there. Massive thanks for coming out, Tim, and spending your time chatting today. It's been a really great, insightful episode. Can you shout out your social media so people know where to find you?
Yeah, of course. It's so my Twitter is TimLees10, and YouTube is @TrainingSpecific. Yeah.
And also make sure you do check out Tim's videos. He's done plenty of certain scenarios, certain positional plays. Like he's done a full tactics sort of dive in. If you like what you heard today, make sure you check on and check out his content as well. If you are ever looking at you got a tie and you got a loose end on a Saturday, please do go out to non-league football. Like it's such a great experience, and it's great to see sort of what we've been talking about in action there for you. And Bury are flying at the moment. So if you're in and around the Bury area, I'm sure you're probably already going. But if you're not, do check them out. But Tim, massive thanks for joining me today. If you are listening to this on Spotify, please do give us a 5-star review. It helps push this content out to more people. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to this episode and make sure you do check out my past content. Tim, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Luke. Cheers. Thank you.